actual experience of an individual dealing with these restrictions. You fail to experience that. You fail to imagine yourself being the one enforcing this restriction on another person. You fail to position yourself as an individual being subject to this restriction, whatever restriction it might be, remembering that you failed once again to note that it's always enforced with threats of violence, actual violence, or...
Okay, let me ask you one question. This has really nothing to do with the topic we're discussing right now, but you are pro, like, drug liberation, you're pro guns, you're pro, like, every individual for themselves. Why are you so, like, patriotic in the sense of country? Why do you see, like, oh, this is our land, the fucking Muslims, it's we versus them? Why do you consider that an issue?
Hey, well, who is patriotic, first of all? Do you see any American flags around here?
No, well, that's not the case, but you get what I'm meaning. I've heard how you speak about, like, Muslims.
Yeah,
and
well, that,
and it's like,
pro-immigration.
Do you relate? No. That's my point. Like, you relate to, like, the individual aspect, like, very, what's it called? Anarchy, like, very anarchist, sort of. But you still have this sort of, like, it's we versus them. Sort of. You still don't get, like, humanity is sort of, like, united in a fucking planet in the middle of the fucking world, in the middle of fucking universe that doesn't matter. You still want to divide us.
Yes.
You're sort of, like, preaching being on an individual level, but like, it neglects everything about fucking society. But at the same time, you're going on like, oh, it's our society versus their society.
Okay, no, I'm not saying it's our society versus their society. As I've said many times, I've said it's pre-Enlightenment thinking versus post-Enlightenment thinking. And those individual human beings are sufficiently high correlatives with pre-Enlightenment thinking that I don't want to admit them, to the extent that there are borders, and there is national sovereignty. Then I think that the border should be used to prevent pre-Enlightenment thinking from entering the country. I've already said there's a test they can prove they're not subject to it, in which case they can come in. All they got to do is deface the Quran and shit like that.
Well, okay.
I could do it with the Bible right now.
I buy the whole, like, against religion thing, but I think your any fucking speaks too fast for yourself to fucking comprehend what you're saying right now.
Oh, I understand
That's my problem.
And you. I understand both of us completely.
Understand yourself, but you don't make sense, dude. You don't fucking make sense. Because you're, like, going on like, oh, the individual. Well, if people hurt themselves, it's not my problem. But you're still being like, it's my fucking country versus their fucking country.
Just because they feel contradictory doesn't mean they are. You haven't established a contradiction.
My type is ENTP. Thank you. Okay. So what were you saying, Eric?
Just because they feel contradictory doesn't mean they are. You have failed to establish a contradiction.
You still didn't answer my question.
What question?
My question is, how can you preach for individual rights, where it's still, like, doing a differentiation between people living in your country and people living outside of your country?
I just answered the question. I said you failed to establish a contradiction. You've just pointed out they seem contradictory.
It is contradictory.
Where? What? What's the contradiction? A contradiction
okay,
is like,
because
here
you don't want...
frogs are green, here it says frogs are not green. That's a contradiction.
The contradiction is you don't want the society to, like, control what can be harmful, a harmful substance, in the sense that I consider LSD to be a pretty harmful substance during, like, the same circumstances as LSD or weed. I don't think it should go under the same regulation. I don't think it should be illegal, but I want more regulation of it.
I'm not favoring regulation of drugs for Muslims.
But you wanted everything to be free, and you basically said, like, oh, well, I can take this lighter and I can go to a gas station and light the entire place on fire. It's up to the individual. You were saying it's up to the individual.
Which of my arguments?
Everything on an individual level.
Which of my arguments, okay, is in contradiction to the assertion that we should not allow Muslims into the country, we mean the federal government, having a border control, sovereign job of keeping the borders.
No,
okay?
It's not sort of a contradiction. It's more like, and it's not about Muslims. I'm talking about general. like borders in fucking general.
Like
discourage, like put religion away. The religious aspect, just put it away.
Okay.
Just why aren't we like one entire fucking nation? Just okay, there's no religion. Religion doesn't exist. But you're saying like it's an individual level, but sort of you're going on like it's them versus us, sort of.
I favor loose borders for civilized people. And
what do you define as a civilized person? Is it like Western values?
I told you it's a clear distinction between pre-enlightenment thinking and post-enlightenment thinking. If you're not capable of post-enlightenment thinking, if you can't distinguish between symbol and reality, then you do not belong in the country. It's very simple, and there's a test we can administer.
For fuck's sake, Eric, I've already told you, if I can discourage religion in this discussion, it has nothing to do with how you fucking interpret.
I favor open borders. I'm not opposed to open borders, and I'm not opposed to immigration. I think Muslims pose a unique problem that needs to be dealt with in a unique fashion. In general, I favor border openness.
Irrelevant. I wasn't talking about religion, but you say you favor open borders. Open borders. That was relevant. So you want open borders, but you want everybody to think for themselves. You want everybody to just be egoistical and care for themselves, not in a society.
I don't want things for other people. You do.
This is what you've been saying the entire time, Eric. This is your fucking utopia. You want fucking anarchy and fucking stand for it.
You're making the wrong framing. What I'm saying is you presume to know what's best for others.
No, you are the one presuming things here, Eric.
Okay, now you're just, I mean, that's not even, you're just repeating what I said, but saying, no, you did it.
Sort of, because I disagree with it.
But
I think you're bullshitting. You're like, you're probably the best bullshitter I've ever talked to.
Jacob, that's exactly why you keep making all these arguments. It's because you disagree, not because you have any good reasons for it. Okay?
What I'm saying
is because I'm right, not because I'm argumentative or being unfair or whatever.
You're not right, Eric. You're fucking contradictory. You're contradictory as fuck. You're going on like, oh, it's gonna be on an individual level, and then you fucking speak about the world without fucking borders. You want fucking full, complete anarchy. Can you just admit you want anarchy?
I don't.
Or how do you want it? You want anarchy. Can you argue against it?
Jacob, you are not asking me any questions. Do you know that?
Stop whistling.
I have to treat him like a student because he's not fucking listening to me at all. You are not asking me any questions. You want to pin me down on something? Pin me down on something and work off of it. Don't sit there and argue like, I'm frustrated, which is basically all you're saying. Pin me down on something and work off of it. It's how it's done.
You're really good at talking with people. I can see that you're pretty like accustomed to it. Anyway, my point is, like the main point is, I don't think LSD should be legalized.
You made it many times.
Well, there's come some new people, so I'm just gonna play them in the same way you do, Eric.
All right, go ahead. Fair enough. You win that point.
There's come some new people, and I don't think LSD, I don't think it should be illegal, but I don't think it should be legalized in the same way as alcohol and weed is. I think you're probably gonna go through some sort of like psychologist or psychiatrist discussion before you can access LSD.
What happens to you if you don't?
You get punished for it.
Well, are you willing to do the punishment?
Yep, sure.
So you're willing to go up to somebody doing a drug deal in the street with a gun and drag them away and put them in a cage?
Yeah, well, since the person is probably aware of the circumstances, yeah, definitely.
Did you not purchase LSD illegally?
Yes, I did.
Are you saying it would have been better if you were in jail right now?
No, what I'm saying is I am totally aware of the like what's this called? The implications of me purchasing LSD. if a cop showed up and basically just point a gun at me and just drop the fucking LSD or whatever and brought me to jail, I would be like, oh well, I had this coming, sort of. I'm aware of the punishment.
Do you wish I had been put in jail? Or are you happy to be here?
Oh well, I like speaking with you, so no, I don't want you in jail.
Okay, well, look, the thing is, that's the reality we gotta have to face, is that people do drugs. You didn't have it coming to you to be subject to violence. You indicate to me, it seems to me that you suffered a lot for your choice that was bad. You seem to care a lot about it. You've already suffered a great deal from the drugs themselves. Why do you need to be additionally punished with violence?
Okay, Eric, I'm getting pretty tired of this discussion because you keep generalizing stuff. What you're saying is that everything, like, I get it. I get it. Like, okay, well, you shouldn't be punished for doing a substance. But if you're informed that, like, you can get this substance, but you have to do this in order to see if you listen. In order to see if you're ready.
I'm making a rule with a threat of violence. From now on, Jacob, Eric says you can't drink alcohol because you make bad arguments when you're drunk. But I'm not going to enforce it with some sort of arbitrary thing. I'm going to go over there with a gun if I see you drinking, and I'm going to put you in a cage for a certain amount of time. Okay? How about that?
You also did one of those viewer things, like, oh, you make bad arguments to make people think like, oh, well, you make so bad arguments.
I'm giving you a comparable example of what you're advocating for. What if I told you that? What if it was my rule? Would it be okay?
That's not the point.
Then why is it okay if it's your rule?
It's not my fucking rule. You're missing the point entirely. Like, you're missing it every time. Like, what I'm saying is that people should be prepared to take a substance such as LSD because it's not similar to alcohol and weed. There should be some sort of, I don't know what. I know that, like, regulating it isn't the best choice. It doesn't work. We've seen the drug work. We all know it doesn't work. But I'm saying that it shouldn't be in the same way as weed and alcohol, because weed and alcohol, it might alter your personality slightly, but LSD is on a different level. That's what I'm saying.
I agree. LSD is a hardcore drug. You shouldn't take it. Take mushrooms.
LSD is the most potent substance in the entire earth, like on the entire earth. Do you know how much it takes to just go flipping crazy on that shit? It's not even 1 fucking milligram. And I'm just experiencing that some people, no, it's not addictive. People haven't died from it. It's not about heartache and stuff. It's a totally psychological thing. So, like, I'm all for having it legalized, but it should be controlled somehow. Because I know that there's a lot of stupid people out there that would do LSD and combine it with different substances during different circumstances just to be cool, you know, just to fucking take LSD and go to the club.
You're somehow is the problem. You're saying, but surely we get to use some violence on this, right? And the answer is no. Because you don't want to be subject to my rule. You're drinking alcohol. I don't drink any alcohol. I drink none. Why? It's a dangerous substance. It's far too dangerous for me to drink.
Yeah, and now you're once again going down to the individual level, because you've had bad experiences of whatever. I've had bad experience of LSD as well, and I totally get what you're saying.
You say
and it might be my FE.
By whom? By whom, Jacob? Controlled somehow by whom? Who gets controlled by whom?
Eric, the thing is, I'm concerned for other people. That's what separates you and me.
I believe your concern, and I believe your refusal to conflate that, to convert that concern into actual reasonable positions. For example, I'm asking you, who gets controlled by whom? You say it has to be controlled somehow. Who gets controlled by whom?
Government basically fucking employs psychiatrists to do fucking tests, sort of, or something. Well, LSD is something you should take in order to improve as a person, or, you know, if you have some fucking issue, something you can't get over. LSD is something you shouldn't take just going to the club, you know.
Just closing your eyes and saying, nah, this isn't about violence. That's what you're doing.
What is about violence? The thing is, okay, Eric. Let's say, okay.
Is stolen. The money the government spends to pay for things is stolen in the first place, and then they point guns at you to put you in jail, and they steal more money to pay for the jail. And it's all a big cycle of fucking leechery off the actual people who make do things in the world.
This is the 5th time you're generalizing my argument. I'm getting pretty tired of this, Eric.
No,
because what you're saying, you make it seem to the other people that I'm all for a regulation. You're one of those stereotypical people that want to keep people to fucking folders. That's your problem. That's your problem, Eric.
Somehow, your words it should be controlled somehow. I'm pointing out that you think you can have the position without having any specifics about the control mechanism, and it's okay. As though the control mechanism had nothing to do with the actual advocacy. That's what you're doing, okay? You are denying the fact that we have to include in the impacts of the control mechanism, and you refuse to specify what it is. I ask you, who would be controlled by whom and how?
Okay, Eric, you know what? When I went to the college, I read a lot of books, you know, like those 300-400 pages books. And there's like people, the teachers are saying to me, like, okay, read the book, read this. And like, I'm just like, okay, well, why did they take so much space to say something so simple? And you're one of the authors of that book. Because you talk so much, but you make so little sense. What you're saying is basically you're using like strange phrases. You're using an advanced vocabulary just to confuse people. But that's not the point. Because you're still dancing around it.
By whom and how? Who is controlled by whom and how? 7 words.
Government.
Syllables in it, Jacob.
Government. Psychiatrist, people.
Government controls people with psychiatrists.
Sort of. Or they make sure that the person is ready to sort of. Or okay, let's make it like this. You may go buy weed, you may go buy alcohol, and you're informed about stuff. You know, you're like, okay, well, not alcohol, but weed. Like, okay, this is the benefits, this is the side effects, this is what can happen. And that, in my opinion, you know, that should be enough. Like, informing people should be enough.
Is it really the psychiatrist who control it? Because let me ask you a question, Jacob. What happens if I decide, oh, you know what, I got to make this easy for people to get instead of hard. So I'm going to ship in from a supplier out of country a big box of acid, and it gets busted. Oh, no, I got busted. I go to jail. That's part of the regulation, right? Or no? Am I allowed to sell it on my own or not?
Well, of course you're allowed to sell it. Why don't you start an own company selling that shit?
Okay. So, but my point is, in your worldview, right, people have to go through a psychiatrist. So if I buy it and sell it without the psychiatrist, what happens to me?
Can you just repeat that?
In your world, you have to go through a psychiatrist. So if I buy it and sell it without having a psychiatrist in the mix, I'm the buyer of acid from a supplier. I sell it to individuals. I don't make them go through a psychiatrist. What happens to me and the individuals who bought it?
Then you get punished, since the persons who you're selling to hasn't gone through a psychiatrist.
So
is that
you're
simple?
saying, listen, it doesn't matter that. Ultimately, I do want it to be illegal because I want to make sure that people go to jail still. I want to make sure that people have guns pointed at them and go to jail.
This has nothing to do with guns and shit.
No, okay, well, in America, cops have guns.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, but make sure they go get locked in cages. So if I sold you acid, you'd be in favor of cops coming in to put you both in jail. Why should you prefer your personal thing about what should be subject to violence arbitrarily versus mine? I don't like alcohol. Why shouldn't you be put in jail? Or
I would say like both of our reasoning is pretty subjective. Your reasoning is like, okay, I sell acid to 5 guys, and both like all of them are informed of the side effects, and they get to do. No, you don't. But that's what you mean.
No, I mean I didn't. Okay. I mean, I didn't inform them. I said, you guys know what you're doing? Hope, here you go. After all,
yeah, exactly. That's my point, because you leave it up to the individual. It's up to them how they act. But you don't consider that what they do might affect other people, because you have no consideration about other people.
No,
it's all about
why you want people to point guns at them. That's what I'm concerned about.
Idiot! I'm getting fucking excited right now because you're a fucking idiot because you fucking still keeps folding me into the fucking black folder. I haven't said that. I have said that. Okay, if you fucking legalize it, okay, you can sell it at a certain like levels. You can sell it here, there, and there, and you're like, oh well, I want to sell it anyway. Then why don't you fucking work at the place that sells the fucking LSD?
Why must I be subject to violence on your thing that you care about, but not my thing that I care about? There has to be a good reason, right? See, my limiting principle is it's your body. You can do with it as you wish. It's not up to me to interfere with other people's consensual trades and agreements. No, yes, if I have someone asking to another consenting adult, it's not anybody else's concern.
Eric, I get that. I totally get that. But the problem is that it hasn't to do with their only their body. It has to do with like mental shift that might affect other people. You can't in the same way as a fucking drunk driver. You know, if someone's fucking driving drunk, I'm not all for alcohol. I fucking hate alcohol. But if someone fucking drives off the road, fucking goes on and fucking rams somebody and the person dies.
But listen,
that's the kind of argument I'm making.
But what we have learned about reality is that people can harm themselves in dramatic ways that affect other people in a lot of different ways, using various things. There are some people who say football should be made illegal because people can break their neck at it, and sometimes they do. Now, the reality is most people who take acid don't end up breaking their neck. Some people do. Okay?
Yeah, I get it.
I've taken acid, I think 7 or 8 times. I've had a couple of really strong acid experiences that were scary as hell. And I don't underestimate the power of it. I advocate against taking it. I would say take mushrooms instead. They're gentler and they're fun. They're giggly, and I like mushrooms a lot. But I advocate against acid. I advocate against ecstasy as well. I've taken really strong ecstasy before, and it made me twitchy the day after and made me feel like I was undergoing some sort of physical harm and stuff. I'm not in favor of either of those drugs. What I am saying is that the reason why we have such a fucked up system where we have in America so many people in jail for doing things, consensual acts. The reason that exists is because of what's happening tonight, where you are saying basically, but you got to understand we have to do something. We as a society have to do something. It's kind of an outcome. It's a hypothesized outcome or even a real outcome driven worldview rather than a principled worldview. And as a consequence, it's because you think, well, I'm being black and white. I'm not being black and white. I'm protecting the integrity of the system rather than worrying about the short-term impacts. Because what you don't understand is it sets precedent. It sets precedents that increasingly we get to say what I have to do and what you have to do. And we don't want that world for sure. Because guess what? If you have energy to worry about what I'm doing, then you're not using your own life wisely. Right? If you're so concerned about, well, are you drinking too much? Are you smoking too much? You should really stop that, Eric. People who go out of their way to say, you should stop smoking on the internet here. That's fine. They're just expressing their opinion. You know what they're not doing? They're not saying, now give me several $100s. Why? Because they're not the state, and that's what the state does. And they say, well, it pays for medical costs. But I don't know. I don't like when other individual human beings aren't cool with each other. And the least cool thing imaginable is a fucking law.
Eric.
I do have to say though that when you put restrictions on things like you're not allowed to possess LSD, but then people start coming up with these substances that aren't illegal, like research chemicals, which actually do more harm to your psyche than LSD. And if it wasn't illegal to have LSD, then more harm, less harm would be.
Well, the thing is that most research chemicals are basically legal until they're unlegalized. I've tried some recent, But if
LSD wasn't illegal in the first place, then we wouldn't have the research chemicals. So it's, I don't know.
Like, I totally get what Eric is saying, and I sort of agree with it, but it's still like this. Eric seems to have a pretty individualistic or maybe even positive view of people.
It shouldn't be illegal. There should even be places that test to see if the shit you got from your dealer is bunk or not. That's what I think.
Look, I mean, here's the deal. It boils down to this. It's not so much that I think my position is pretty straightforward. If you are doing something wrong, subject to either criminal or civil liabilities. And what's wrong is violating someone else's negative rights and non-interference. So that could include property rights violations, could include body rights argumentations, violations, could include any number of things. That's the gist of my position, is that there exists in the status quo without overreach, already there exists means for people to find justice. If I have had my rights violated, I have the criminal justice system. If I have been subject to some sort of contractual violation, I have the civil courts. And these things provide me remedies for my needs. When we add extra layers of crime that aren't crime, because a crime needs to violate someone's rights. It has to be a crime against somebody. We have all these crimes that aren't against anybody. Right? It's crimes against the state. That's why in the United States, if you are found guilty of, and when you get prosecuted, they prosecute you with like the state of California versus Eric Strauss or whatever. But if you are in that prosecution, if you have committed a crime against somebody, it says it's prosecuting for crimes against and names the party you have committed a crime against. If it's a drug crime, it's against the people of California. But I haven't committed a crime against any of the people of California.
Eric.
What?
The problem with you is that you speak so much. You go on these like any rants, and my SI just can't keep up. Because I see like breaches in your arguments all the time, but as soon as you just keep nagging on, like it's a long line, and I just lose it, because it's so long.
Here's the thing, Jacob. There actually aren't quote-unquote breaches in my arguments because I'm a debate coach, and I've come to this position because it is the single strongest bulletproof, almost bulletproof position that you can attain, wins all the argument chains.
Bullshit. Let me tell you why. Because you have reached a position where you basically are so comfortable in your own knowledge that you basically consider it as a truth. And you don't, no. You don't consider it as a subjective truth. You consider it as sort of a universal truth. This is what truth for everybody, everywhere. This is the truth. Listen to me, because right now I'm speaking.
I hear you. I heard everything you said. You don't understand it. You're talking about me, what I think, what I believe. I'm talking about the arguments. Different.
I'm also talking about the fucking arguments.
No, you're not. You're avoiding talking about the arguments.
No, I'm talking about the arguments that you make.
No, you're making a statement about me and how I argue according to you, how you feel about it. If you were talking about the arguments,
to how you actually fucking act, dude.
Jacob, if you were talking about the arguments, you would say something like this. When you said this, and it conflicted with this, that's an example of you being contradictory with yourself, Eric.
Okay, do you want some evidence, Eric?
All you say it feels contradictory.
Okay, you're speaking about fucking FBI and all that shit. You want some evidence. Okay, let's do it like this. Check through every fucking video you've uploaded about us speaking about discussing topics. No, shut the fuck up right now. Because 80% of the time we're discussing stuff, you're the one talking in every fucking single discussion. And I know you're a brilliant guy, Eric. I know you know a lot of stuff, but that's actually
not relevant to what you're saying. It's just a personal attack. It's not relevant. No, I don't care. But it's not relevant. I do care about.
It's sort of attacking how you frame your arguments.
It's not relevant. That's not what's going on here for sure. You've had plenty of opportunity to express yourself. And
of course, it's relevant because I lose my thread of force or of thought because you speak so much.
No, it's because you avoid my questions and you don't want to be pinned down on anything.
Because your questions are so absurd. Your questions are so like diffuse.
Diffuse?
Okay, maybe it's a better word in Swedish. Abstract. Abstract is the word.
I'll just say, Jacob, that when regulations get put on things, then cops search out people like just trying to make their living selling weed or whatever, then they get put in prison, and then they're they're forced to work for like $1 an hour, and then the government's just like, you can't make sure that it's not corrupt, and there's just so many other things that come along with those restrictions that I don't know. It's just not. It's not. It shouldn't be.
This is just a breather. I think we'll continue soon.
Nobody spends shared money wisely.
Nobody what?
Nobody spends shared money wisely. It's always, everybody get yours while you can before the budget stops passing out money to the various departments.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Tiffany.
Yo, Tiff.
It always ends up being a cycle. If you don't have a limiting principle that says crimes are violations of rights, things that are not violations of rights are not crimes, and civil liability is civil liability, and individuals can violate each other's rights or civil status, then it solves itself. All the problems are already solved.
Eric, if someone were to sell you a fucking nuclear bomb on the black market, would you be fine with that?
Okay, now that's where, in fact, we run afoul of libertarianism's boundaries. My answer to that is the rights all stem from ownership of one's own body. It's the principle of self-ownership.
But if it affects someone else's body, is it relevant then?
But I'm trying to answer your question, but it's a complicated question. Okay, I mean it's a complicated answer because basically you find the boundaries. Are there boundaries in terms of what sort of weaponry individuals should be allowed to have? And should an individual be allowed to have a nuclear bomb? The answer is no, an individual should not be allowed to have a nuclear bomb. I would point out.
No. Stop right there. Okay, so why is that? Because what you're saying is that, okay, you wouldn't be allowed to have a nuclear bomb since it affects other people.
I know. Jacob, I've gone through all these argument chains a million times. I know your argument, okay? Let me answer it. I'm well aware of it.
I know you are. That's why I stopped, because I know you understand what I'm about to say.
Yeah, Jacob, I know all the boundaries of all these arguments. So you're right. You found the boundary of libertarianism, which is in certain weapons of mass destruction, I don't believe individuals should be able to own them. I don't think it's necessary for an individual to own, for example, a bomber with regular bombs either. It's like, well, what are you going to possibly do with that except bomb somebody? So I get it. It is a limit. And what I would say in response to it is, while we may have to make exceptions occasionally, it needs to be done from the right framework. That's what I care about more than anything else. It's not that it has to be perfect. I guess it's never going to be perfect. We're not going to have a perfect rights-respecting world. What I'm saying is, let's start from the right framework. Let's start from, well, why would we even dream of passing a law that penalizes or criminalizes consensual activity? That's rights violating. And then we go, well, we have to justify it in this instance. And okay, but understand that it should have with nuclear bombs, it's a pretty cut and dry thing, right? We don't need people out of nuclear bombs. But I would point out the following thing as well. The only way an individual can acquire a nuclear bomb is from a state. So we're talking about states, the problem.
Bullshit.
Creating a problem big enough for themselves.
Bullshit. You cannot get a fucking nuclear bomb from a state. There's plenty of ways to get a nuclear bomb.
You talked about consensual activities. What qualifies someone being capable of giving consent? I mean, a child can't give consent to have sex. Where should that cutoff be?
Correct. The issue of consent is complicated. It's well defined in the literature. You can find all the different aspects of consent that are necessary. You need to be fully informed. You need to be of age, which is basically a fully informed issue. You need to be of sound body and mind. You need to be of sound mind, not drunk, and a number of other things. Fully informed is the most important one. That you shouldn't be tricked into shit. So consent is, of course, an important issue, and I'm not disputing the importance of consent in making consensual choices. What I'm saying is we don't need to worry about that issue because that's not what's being debated. What's being debated is whether the government ought to legislate criminal penalties for consensual behaviors. And the answer is no. Assuming they're consensual means we assume all the standards of consent have been met.
But if someone were to sell you a nuclear bomb and you're like, okay, you're going to go to jail, what's wrong with that? Really?
Okay, well, first of all, I would say that a community of any size would have that because it's in the individual interest of every single person is a good reason why you would want to make an exception there. Okay, so it's like almost all the things that people want to criminalize, there's disagreement about it.
So my argument was correct. You basically don't care about individuals. You only care about groups of people.
Hold on. You didn't actually hear my answer, so you don't know that, right?
No, but I can basically...
Hold on. I'm in the middle of answering. You got to actually respond to what I say, though. You have to actually respond to what I say, okay? You promise?
Well, you haven't done that, but okay.
I haven't responded to what you say? That's a lie, sir. That's a lie.
You can check it out on Raw later.
Yeah, you can check it. You're the drunk one. I would trust my judgment, but more, okay? But look, regardless of your drunkenness...
You're the high one, okay?
Jacob, you're going to have to live with this tomorrow. You're going to see it. It's going to embarrass you. I'm going to cut this shit, too, by the way. It's not going to look good. You can cut your own version if you'd like.
Okay, but just make sure that you cut, like, every single piece out.
Oh, no. I'm cutting the Eric version. You can cut the Jacob version if you want. That's your remedy.
Please. I thought you were
That's your remedy. Hey, I'll make you a fucking channel manager. You can cut it and put it up yourself. You can put up fucking 10 videos about it. That's your remedy, and it's a fair one.
Stop making...
Oh, you're actually, like, emotionally butthurt by this.
No, I'm saying...
channel managers, Eric.
I want you to do that. I think it'd be great. I can make it a communication.
Why don't you just, like, keep the videos posted raw and let people make their own decision?
Well, Jacob, because I personally have enjoyed the hell out of this conversation. This has been great stuff. Hey, Jacob, listen, it's been very good material. I appreciate you coming in here and rabble. It's great. The answer to your question, though, is every single other individual has no interest whatsoever in attaining. There's no other individual who doesn't have a negative position on that one individual's current positive position. Normally, it's in disagreement. So in this regard, that's one reason why we would say that's a reasonable exception. I know it's not a axiomatic reason. It's an appeal to popular sentiment on some level, but consensus is not actually an appeal to popular sentiment. It's an appeal to consensus, which is a much stronger argument. Okay, so in that regard, I would say consensus would be one reason to accept nuclear weapons and other large-scale weapons of mass destruction. Now, do you want to respond to that point? Okay, go ahead.
I think, like, when I first saw you, Eric, I thought you were sort of a preacher of truth and stuff. And therefore, I want you to, if you're about to post this shit, then fucking post it unedited. Because if you edit this shit, then you increase your, in the same way as you fucking use arguments.
Hey, the raw footage will be posted. Every little bit of this is going up in raw footage to one channel or another. But the main channel may get an edited version if Eric or someone else wants to create one. But all the raw footage is going up. I'm recording all of this, regardless of what Eric is doing.
Okay, next, I want to demonstrate, Jacob, what it would have looked like had you answered my point. You would have said, if we take consensus as the reason, then we'd have to, number one, survey everybody. And how would we find out that everybody actually agreed? And who gets to determine what consensus is anyway? Isn't this just as mushy and a reference point as the ones you were making previously, Eric? Can you really distinguish between consensus and popular sentiment? Is that a strong argument? That would be responding on point, okay?
I really don't care about what people think about how this video is uploaded or what people consider of it. But I made a fair share of arguments during this discussion that hasn't been answered because you've been dodging the fucking bullet in the same way as Hillary Clinton. And the people who are about to watch this video will witness how you do it.
Give me one or don't make the claim.
Okay, well, my inferior SI is pretty damn bad, but I can probably pinpoint 2 or 3 times you did it.
Name one or don't make the claim.
I can't. Just check the fucking videos, man.
Why do you believe it? You can't name one.
Because it's fucking true. Because it's fucking true. Because I witnessed it back then.
So you remember knowing it, but you don't know what it is.
I can't remember the details of it, no. But it was probably just a moment before I called you out on being similar to Hillary Clinton, yeah.
How long ago?
You should just rewind and you'll probably find it.
In other words, you felt as though it might be contradictory. You can't remember the specifics. You can't really determine if it was or not because you can't use your TI on it. So
okay, so bullshit. So now you're using the word, like the term, like you felt, in order to make sure that people think it's FI instead of TI, just to my inferior SI. And that's bullshit. You're very good at manipulating people, Eric. You're very good at manipulating people.
If it hasn't been subjected to scrutiny, it's not TI. If it has not been subjected to scrutiny, now you did not have the time in the real-time flow of the moment to subject it to adequate scrutiny to determine whether or not it was contradictory. You can't remember what it was, so we can't test it in public in the light of day and see if it was, so you're just making the claim out of your ass. That's a fact.
Eric, then fucking scrutinize it. Like Tiffany said that the raw footage is on YouTube. Watch it yourself.
You made the claim.
I made the claim. I don't have to prove anything to you.
You don't. That's true. But then nobody should take your claims seriously if you're going to make them and not substantiate them.
Of course not, because they can watch it themselves. Like, there's plenty of videos. They can watch it themselves.
It's a claim in dispute, sir. That means you don't just get to say, oh, well, just trust me, the evidence is out there. I refuse to produce any of it or give you any examples, even paraphrase the examples.
Bullshit, because I'm not saying like the evidence is out there. I'm actually like pinpointing exact where they can find the evidence.
But why would they want to argue your position for you? Since it's in dispute, we should negate unless you establish that we should affirm.
Okay, can you rephrase that in a simpler terms?
I'm saying you're making a claim that this is so, and you're saying, no, you can find out for yourself, you can prove it to yourself. But why should we want to prove your claim since you are unwilling to do any of the legwork of establishing that claim?
What I'm saying is that you're basically bullshitting me, and what I'm saying is like, let the viewers do their own research. Let the viewers watch the videos themselves and make their own conclusion about it, but without being biased about like how you respond to it. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, I mean, I don't feel any need to instruct anybody on how they're going to deal with anything, right? That's my point, is people will watch if they feel like it, and they'll draw whatever conclusions they will. Maybe they will conclude on your side. I don't give a fuck. My point is, you're wrong, and I've pointed it out multiple times, and you just keep trying to avoid that fact. So,
and I think you're a hypocrite, Eric.
But see, it's like there's a difference. You're a hypocrite is something that you feel. You're wrong is something I've proved.
You're a hypocrite, and I can prove it. Like, sort of due to TI.
So let's prove it. Let's move on now, and we'll go prove it later.
I've said this 50 fucking times. Give me an example.
What I've said, like, I'm really getting bored of this subject, but...
You're done. I'm done talking to you. You're just rambling around. You're not... It's ridiculous. Now, tomorrow, don't feel too bad. I did worse shit than this. Not a big deal. You're drunk. It's fine. It was fun for me. It was entertaining. I think it's going to be entertaining to cut from. And it's not gonna. You're not going to wake up feeling full of the opposite of shame. You're going to be proud. Okay? You're going to wake up being like, I am so proud of what I did last night. But I want to reassure you, you don't have to feel ashamed of yourself. You held your own pretty well overall, and your drunkenness excuses the stubbornness, so don't even worry about it.
Okay. Let me just interrupt you right there. First, you want to like dismiss the discussion because you know you're wrong. Deep inside, you know that something I'm saying is right. Don't interrupt me because I know you want to. Second of all, you're like mentioning like how I'm gonna feel when I wake up. I'm not gonna fucking even think about the discussion when I wake up. Like, this is the least of my concerns when I wake up tomorrow. This has nothing really to do with that. You're just using like sort of like rulership fucking psychology onto me. And I think that most people you've been talking to have been like obeying your sort of like management of how this. Shut the fuck up, because right now I'm speaking. And this is how it fucking works. Because you're a fucking judgmental ENTP. You're probably one of the most fucking judgmental ENTPs I've ever fucking met. And I watch your fucking videos on YouTube, and I have so much respect for you. But while speaking to you in person, you're one of the most incompromisable characters I've ever fucking met.
It's great. It's good stuff.
New topic, guys. You guys are gonna go back and forth forever.
No, I like that. That's good stuff. I mean, I don't think I'm that, but whatever. Who cares? All right. So what I do know though is that's fucking the first, either the first or the last, or it's just gold fucking gold. I mean, I don't think I'm doing that shit. Nobody obeys me. I don't give any orders. I don't tell anybody to do anything. What?
Okay, so how come that 80% of the time that each streaming video you launches is basically just you speaking? There's no discussion. It's basically you just ranting about your fucking experiences in the past. There's no discussion. You don't interrupt me. There's no like you don't ask people question like, okay, Susan, what do you feel about this topic? You don't do that. You just keep on ranting, and then you're like disappointed when people don't interrupt you.
He has actually done that plenty of times.
Okay, so that's probably true. It's the same. I mean, I agree. I speak too much when I'm in a room. I don't listen enough. But I also will point out that a lot of times when I stream from the host Eric room so that people can have their discussions in the raw room and have them recorded to the raw channel without me in there. In order to facilitate their own discussions, I tend to go into another room sometimes because I don't want to get in the way. You know, people are having a good talk. I might come in here and talk too much. I know I will probably. I tend to get involved in some discussion like this. So I do take measures to have concern for the community like that. My ethics is not perfect, obviously, and it's difficult to manage a group conversation like this. So, I mean, it's difficult in a lot of ways because on the one hand, well, it's like you said, actually, the solution is pretty simple. I need to ask more questions. But see, the kind of questions I ask a lot of questions.
Okay.
But they shouldn't be questions that want to pin somebody down, and people don't like those questions because they know I'm gonna tear their cherished beliefs apart. Yes.
Okay. Well, you sort of are, but you sort of aren't, and I can relate to it myself because I think both of us are pretty familiar to go on a sort of NE rant, and we don't have any conceivable like expectations of how far we're gonna go. And I know that you can go on for like a long time, and I can just listen to you because you're a very nice guy to listen to, and you have very much insight in stuff. But it's still this sort of like lack of FE, I would say, when to just hand it over and like, it's not my fucking sister, it's my girlfriend, bitch. Anyway, but it's sort of like you go from one topic to another and then another, and then you just leave the subject, and like the pattern in how you process the information or how you present the information is sort of similar to how I do it myself. And therefore I recognize when you're trying to generalize stuff, you want to find sort of you don't consider yourself being able to search for an objective truth, like sort of a common ground.
I'm going to attribute this to Dunning-Kruger syndrome on your part.
I have no idea who that is.
Google it.
Okay, can you just type it out?
All right.
Is that when a dumb person thinks they're smart?
Everybody should like take acid and like, oh, I could burn down the entire village if I wanted to. Yeah, and you're sober enough to realize you shouldn't. But when you're fucking on LSD and you're like, oh well, everything's light, the fucking world's like, I can jump from my fucking balcony, you know. Then you don't fucking get how much LSD affects your brain, dude. You don't fucking get it.
I do. I've done acid multiple times.
Yeah? Have you had a bad trip?
Yeah, I've had a horrible bad trip.
All right, so have I.
Okay, I understand. It's a serious drug. Jacob, you are not arguing similar to me at all. You don't understand what my arguments are doing. Well, you do understand, but you don't like what they're doing because they're dispatching with your arguments in no short order. And so that's what you're displaying here when you're saying, trying to draw equivalencies between your argumentation and mine. You're experiencing the Dunning-Kruger effect because you don't understand argumentation well enough to understand how vastly superior I am at it.
Okay, I don't understand the argumentation because of how vastly superior I am.
No, you don't understand argumentation well enough to understand that we are not engaged in the same thing here. I'm trying to get you to understand shit.
According to what I thought was that you sort of like dodged my questions. You sort of tried to make everything more objective and general than what were like discussion was. And I sort of got the hang of what you were saying, like all along. I got it, but you kept like going on like, oh, you want people to be punished for doing drugs all the fucking time. That's not my point.
Okay, so listen, who's doing that? Neptune?
I don't know.
Anyway,
It's not me. I'm muted.
Listen, it's you keep talking about what I was doing in general, but what I was saying is what we should be doing, if you're arguing well, is to understand your own position as a set of distinct chains of arguments. Okay, we might call them blocks, and in those blocks there are distinct warrants, which are reasons why a claimed impact is in fact so. Okay, and so what I was trying to do is to get you to understand that no, it's not the case that I keep trying to dodge a point. Is that point's wrong. That's why you're feeling so uncomfortable with it. It's wrong. And you might have some points that are better argumentation chains. You could go down and establish some right points. But you're saying, yeah, but my position is right. It's not right until you've established it, and you fail to establish it. It's that simple. And the thing is, if you have adequate detachment from your positions, you are willing to kick shit when it disagrees with you. But you're not. If you're attached, you're not willing to kick shit. You're not willing to kick shit.
But Eric, what you fail to see is that you work in a similar way. Because you sort of like, in the way that you like, it's the phrasing. You use sort of a different phrasing when you like, because you know that you want people watching this video to make sure that you're the superior one, because you're the all-knowing God, Eric. He knows so much about. No.
Why are you talking about motivations? Why?
Because it's relative, due to your like sort of devilish FI.
It's not relevant because we're talking about arguments. If you want to win arguments, you win them with arguments. If you want to say, you're stupid, Eric, because you need too much attention, or you need to seem like the big guy or whatever, then we have that conversation separately, and that's a personal conversation when you tell me, look, Eric, you're bad at me, or whatever, but it's not relevant. Do you understand?
It's not, I get it. It's not relevant. It's definitely not relevant. But it's sort of like you're convicted to the issue, and I would definitely understand if you're like, you started up all this shit, and I'm pretty like grateful you did it, but I can understand if you have sort of an image to maintain being in discussions in this place, and how much you matter. Like, you might defy it as much as you want to, but I think many people here have sort of a like respect for you, and a sort of a like they're still yelling. Yeah, we are.
No, I mean, look, the thing is, what are you criticizing me for here? Exactly. I don't even know.
Well, it's not even the argument. I know.
The truth is simply this. When you're talking about the argumentation stuff, the reason it gets heated, or the reason I get angry, is because the other person is being stubborn and not acknowledging certain things they need to kick. There's certain argumentation chains that I've hammered, I've successfully pointed out that they don't work. Don't go down that chain, fucking kick it. Acknowledge you're wrong and move on to a different chain. It's like, it's simple goddamn how to live kind of shit. Like, don't forget to breathe. You know, but people are so attached to their arguments, they don't know how to do that. They don't know when they're beat on argument chain. The fact is, I can beat almost all your argument chains. True, but that means you need to kick almost all of them. It doesn't mean there's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah, well, like, you're like one of the persons I respect the most, Eric, because you're very fucking intelligent and you're very fucking quick with it. But the thing is that you still, like, your opinion of the main issue is the legalization of like LSD. That's the thing we were discussing, and you sort of sorted me into the kind of folder like, oh, you gotta punish people that do LSD, and that's not my fucking. You did fucking watch the raw footage, man. That's what you did.
It wasn't about you. It was saying that if this protocol, TE protocol, public policy protocol exists, this is the actual outcome of it. This is the protocol. This is the actual outcome. Okay, it wasn't about you. It had nothing to do with you. You were proposing a protocol. I had an impact on the protocol.
You want to think about outcomes. Okay, well, I see like newspaper displaying like LSD, well, force the guy to do this kind of stupid stuff. And sure, like in the long term, it might be beneficial, but there will be so much. And now I'm thinking just plain of like legalizing it in the same way as alcohol and weed. But like in the short term, there would be so much conflict and people would be so fucking different.
Okay. Those are fair impacts to point out. And I address those impacts in a number of ways. I said, number one, the bad harms exist in the status quo with it illegal. Plus, you get the even if you accept that you're going to minimize those harms, you're going to maximize other harms that have to do with violence. I address those points directly. You see?
Okay. I just want to make sure one thing, because there's one thing I've learned about how to discuss with you now. And I sort of see it pretty clearly, because you see things very much about implications and the consequences of action. And I think if I just turn my page and go on like the implications of the stuff.
Not correct. That's not correct.
Isn't it? Because you seem to do it quite a lot, actually.
You just accuse me of using a utilitarian framework. What I'm saying is, no matter which framework you're arguing under, stay there for the purpose of that argumentation chain. You're locked into it by a reciprocal burden. So if I argue, for example, here's a physical world impact that will happen if we execute this protocol. Here's what that's an argument I was making. Here's an impact. It's going to cause harm to people. Then you need to actually address the actual impact that I've established or the warrant that establishes it. One of the two. You can't change the subject and go, yeah, but whatever. Okay? And then claim that it just sits there and doesn't impact you at all. That argument stands until you respond to it.
I won't fucking change my argument if that's what you're saying. I still think that like legalizing fucking LSD has more harm.
You have an argument. You're making an argument. You're making bad ones.
Why is it a bad one?
I was just telling you. Because within a given argumentation chain, you need to argue it within that argumentation chain's framework. So, in other words, if you want to frame up, if you want to go to a meta level and go framework, then argue framework explicitly. What you did was just change the subject.
Okay. Well, you've changed the subject fucking several times during this discussion, and you can watch it on.
Not responsive, for Christ's sake.
No.
It's wrong. That was wrong to me, but it's not relevant to what we're saying now.
Exactly, and that's my point. Okay, that's my point. Eric, I get it. Both of us has done the same thing, associating with stuff and whatever. But my point is that LSD should be subscribed, but it shouldn't be under the same regulation as weed and alcohol.
I'm not going over that point again. I've gone over it too many times with you. We've argued this chain down to the nub. I've made all of my points. I've responded to all of yours. You've responded to none of mine.
I've responded to plenty of yours, but the problem is that you're an anarchist.
Not on that chain.
You believe in anarchy, and I don't.
I don't believe in anarchy. You're just throwing random sentences out in the air as though they mean things.
People watching Raw will probably understand what I'm saying right now, because everything you've done has basically supported sort of anarchy. Because government, you want government to have no involvement in what you're doing.
To a given resolution. You keep wanting to change resolutions midstream, make it about me. Okay, it's not about me.
It's not about you. It's about your opinion. It's about your opinion on this matter.
No, I don't have an opinion, really. I have arguments I'm making. You're making stupid ones and failing to acknowledge it.
Well, you're making stupid ones to my ears, because everything I hear is...
You're making factually false statements now.
Guys, instead of yelling about this, address the anarchy point real quick. Eric doesn't believe in anarchy because he doesn't believe that if something goes wrong, if someone ends up from an informed position, taking LSD, going crazy and committing a crime, he's not saying they shouldn't be punished for that crime.
Right.
But in the same way,
everyone's on the same level instead of just yelling at each other, because it's driving me crazy.
Stop being a fucking lawyer for Eric right now, okay?
I'm not even agreeing with him 100%. I'm trying to explain his position to you so that you understand it properly. The same way
I fucking understood it fucking 2 hours ago. But the thing is,
that's not now, which is that you are not arguing right. That's what I'm pointing out now. You're arguing badly. You're making bad arguments badly. And I'm scolding you for it. And I'm telling you, no, we're not doing the same thing, Jacob. You have a lot to learn about this shit.
No. I don't agree on that because you still can't face my argument. You still don't understand the implication that LSD has if it were to become legalized.
I've addressed it. I've answered it multiple ways.
Yeah, but that's because you're on a very, very individualistic level. Like, okay, well, okay, just take this shit. It's your responsibility. Take this fucking...
Stop yelling.
I answered it on a group level too. I said that if you actually care about the group, you care about the integrity of the system. For the same reason we have to have forest fires periodically in order to keep the forest clean. Sometimes we have to allow the naturally occurring harms of things to naturally occur in order for individuals to have free will.
Okay, so if you're giving someone a gun, it's their responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Exactly. But what if you give a gun to a stupid person?
Well, we come back to that informed consent thing. If you're not a sound body and mind, that's different.
Exactly, and that's my fucking point in this discussion. You can't give LSD out in the same way as you do fucking cannabis or alcohol because everybody isn't in the same.
Out to someone who's not of sound mind. If you're not of sound enough mind to take cannabis and alcohol, you're not of sound enough mind to do the research and take LSD.
Exactly. I'm agreeing with Liz. Liz seems to be getting my point. It's like, I know that most of the people can handle it, but like some people can't. And I want to make sure that the people that can't handle it don't harm people in general.
Then open a non-profit volunteering to give assessments of individuals as to whether or not they should take acid.
I mean, or you could turn it into a business and make some money off it.
True.
It's been an ego-bruising afternoon, which is always good. It helps to. I'm going to reassess a little bit. Okay, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to look for that footage. Hey, Tiffany, are you still here? Let me see.
No, that's him.
Hey, Am, what's up?
What do you know when that footage will be up? I want to.
Well, some of it's already up. It uploads once an hour.
Okay, cool.
The beginning of it's already there. I've already looked through some of it. That's why I was trying to get a word in earlier, but now I don't even remember what it was about.
Okay, well, this is gonna be a time-consuming project. That was a long time. How long were we yelling at each other for? A long time?
At least an hour or two.
Wow. Just don't bias anything. Just don't cut stuff out. I want it uncut.
Well, there will be an uncut version. I'm happy to go through with you and make your cut version and help you if you want.
No, don't do it. Like, don't make like the Eric cut version.
You, not Eric. Eric's gonna make his own. I'm not gonna help Eric. He doesn't need help. But
you can do it if you want, Eric. But it probably show you as inferior if you do that because I will comment on it.
Entertaining. We can have both versions.
Why not simply one fucking version?
There already will be an uncut version for anyone that wants to listen through the whole thing. But if someone wants to watch a 10, 15-minute video as opposed to sitting through 2 hours of raw footage, I want that to be on the channel. Don't fucking make it harder for people to consume the media. The truth is out there. We're not preventing that.
All right, and listen, the reality is this. I'm consistently fair on those things. Like I was with Trey. You know, he got to say his whole thing, right? So, I mean, I'm not going to do anything that would be considered a foul in debate. In other words, I'm not going to take something you say out of context and position it to make it sound like you meant something you actually didn't mean, anything like that. So, you have my promises on that, and I'm not going to, I mean, probably what I'll end up doing is cutting a video of just me yelling at you. And not even having to do it all, you know? It's just going to be me yelling at you, a bunch of clips of that. And those are pretty fun. I can put a little peppy music underneath it, and people probably enjoy them. Okay? So also, all your various points about my own failings as shortcomings as an individual attempting to figure this shit out are noted and will necessarily inform my nature and behavior and stuff going forward. Thank you for all for being here, and I will talk to you later.
Eric, one last thing. He just left. What an asshole.
Oh my god.
What a fucking asshole. I was about to tell him something important. He just fucking left.
But listen, if you feel misrepresented in any final video that comes out, let's make a response about it.
No, I don't have the energy to do that because I don't care about it.
Well, that's your problem.
Yeah, it's like social status quo and all that. Fuck that. Well, I just wanted to tell Eric that he's probably got to like sort of interrupt his own NE rants sometimes and just ask questions to the people being in the discussion, because it doesn't feel or seem like much of
where the disconnect is. And I'm not saying I don't agree with you, but he's just arguing in a debate competitive style. He's not arguing the same way you are.
In which way do I argue?
Well, you're more arguing from like an actual personal belief standpoint, where as part of Eric's argument probably does come from personal belief. He is just making the best argument he possibly can in a structured format because he's a fucking debate coach and what he does for a living.
But he's generalizing. Like he's generalizing a lot. Like he's generalized me.
No, I'm not saying that there isn't an emotional side of it. But
he generalized like 5, 6 fucking times.
That's not a structured debate.
No, I'm not explaining what I'm trying to say properly.
Eric was just trying to crush me. He wasn't trying to understand what he was saying.
It's a competition for Eric, is what I'm trying to say. It's about It's about winning the argument more than making the better point. It's about making the better argument, not making the better point. So instead of taking the time to try and understand where a point that the other person has made, maybe that gets misrepresented or missaid in a way, instead of realizing that and trying to flesh out the real point of his opponent and then crush it, he just crushes what's there. If you don't bring to the table and I'm not saying he's amazing for doing this, that's what's happening. There's
exactly.
a communication disconnect. And I get your frustration. I get frustrated with Eric too. It's why I try not to argue with him anymore.
Well, Tiffany, that's sort of like exactly what happened. He went like sort of crushing. I tried to reach some sort of understanding between us. Like, okay, what do you think and why are you thinking it? But he tried to generalize me into a certain folder of opinions, which he could then destroy. He was like, well, you don't want it, you want it restricted. And I was like, no, I don't.
Jacob.
I've never...
Well, for example, when there was the whole, I watched some of it, and when there was the whole situation with him saying, well, you're saying you have to go talk to someone like a doctor before you can get it. And I mean, ultimately, if I'm not mistaken, I think your position was more along the lines of you need to have some sort of informational, system to make sure someone is properly informed before they purchase it. It doesn't necessarily have to be a doctor. It doesn't necessarily have to be extreme government regulations saying you can't do it. Just there needs to be something to make it at least frustrating enough for someone not to just be stupid and walk in and just buy it and take it.
Exactly. That's my point. That was what I mean. I don't know if the psychiatrist might be the wrong word, but like I wanted people, because I know there's people doing things spontaneously just for the sake of doing it. Like, oh well, have you seen this? It's sort of like LSD is gonna make the going to the club more fun, and just fucking pop LSD before going to the club.
Yeah, but I mean, some of those people we could do without. I mean, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but like I'm imagining the worst possible scenario because I've seen like a lot of stupid people in my life. Like,
but I feel like that's also coming from a position where you're making decisions based on fear, which I do also have a problem with.
It's a fear of people being stupid, but people being stupid is sort of an objective truth.
You can't regulate stupidity. You can't combat stupidity with regulation.
Thank you.
I know. And I'm pretty depressed about that fact. Yeah.
It is
Thank
depressing,
you. Oh
and it's
my God.
But I can regulate what stupid people gain access to.
Yeah, but you run a fine line between
you're restricting the freedom of non-stupid people by the potential of possible stupid people. Which
Exactly. I don't know if I actually pointed to her on anyone else's screen, but I pointed to her on my screen. Oh God.
Are you still there, Jacob?
Jag tror att det är rätt bra.
Jacob?
Well, this was interesting thing to walk into. God damn it, cat! Fucking cat, knocking shit over.
That's what.
No, he's not autistic. I've been accused of being fucking autistic before, and it's bullshit. You haven't met an autistic person if you think Eric's autistic.
I think Eric expected him to play that out completely differently. Because Jacob didn't really add much from his original position.
Asperger's is a form of autism, and no, he does not have Asperger's. Just an ENTP. Yes, he's very ADHD.
Jag vet. Jag ska fan se.
Not similar.
how is it similar?
Saken...
Autism is not a dopamine fuck up. Yeah, ADHD is. I'm saying you're apples and oranges here. What does that have to do with autism or Asperger's? They're not even close to similar. No. Just no.